Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Valeo Values Podcast. I am your host, Carter Hockman, and today's guest is the Director of Boys High School Teams here at Valeo FC, Darren Murray. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Darren.
Yeah, no problem. You're welcome.
So before we get into everything, the first question that we always ask on the podcast is, how did you first get into soccer altogether?
I think, growing up in Dublin, Ireland, I think it's as soon as you can walk, you're kicking a ball. And that's it. I think it's ingrained in the culture over there. It's either soccer or Gaelic football or hurling. So it's a very sport-orientated culture in Ireland. So that's it. Probably since from you could walk, you were kicking a ball.
Talk to me a little bit about your own development as a kid growing up in Dublin.
Yeah, well, growing up in Crumlin, it was a suburb of Dublin. It's probably about 5 miles from the city centre. So there's a lot of kids around my age. The local park was in walking distance. The local club was Crumlin United. So everybody went to play for them. You went through all the age groups, I was there since when I was 8 years of age all the way up to U18. And that's when you finish playing at U18, you go into either, come over to the States, or you go play pro. At 14, 15 years of age, some of the English teams come over and take you over to England for trials, like Man U or Liverpool, Celtic, all the clubs in England as well. So a lot of the players that I played with and against were left the country when they were 14, 15 years of age, and a lot of them stayed, obviously, because there's only so many who can make it. So I think it was, it probably started around club organised soccer around 7, 8 years of age, finished at the club 18 years of age, then you either went pro or you went into the senior team, which is the men's team, at 18, 19 years of age. So,
because I genuinely don't know, what is the youth soccer landscape like as a whole in Ireland?
It's pretty good. I think, growing up, it's not paid to play. You pay, when I was growing up, it was $1. You brought $1 to the game to pay for the referee, and that was it. You got all your uniform was free. Didn't pay any fees or anything like that. But you didn't go to tournaments because you're playing all year round. You went to a couple of cup tournaments that you were in because you're playing your league, and then you have a couple of cup tournaments, whether it's the All Ireland, which is the big cup. You play against other teams out of your state, all over the country, and then that's the All Ireland. Then you have the Leinster Championship, which is your region, like New England, and then you have your league. So you're playing probably 38 games a season because you're playing one game a week. You're not playing 2 or 3 games a week. You're not obviously the weather is a big factor over here, but you're playing 38 games a year, maybe more because of all the cup competitions. And then in the summer, you're playing all summer either with all your friends or some tournaments that are select teams, or 5-a-side, 7-a-side. So you're basically playing all year round. So it's pretty intense.
Is there any emphasis on playing other sports in Ireland, or is it mostly is it like 98% soccer centric?
No. I think soccer is probably the biggest sport. But now we've got Gaelic games too, which is our national. We've got hurling and Gaelic football. So they take a lot of athletes away from the soccer, like basketball and American football would over here. So I think the Gaelic games are huge too. So I grew up playing both. I played Gaelic football and soccer. Stopped playing hurling because it was a bit of
I love watching hurling.
Yeah. It's a bit of intense game.
It's fantastic to watch. I mean, is it encouraged similarly like it is in the US to try out all those other sports along with soccer? Or
not really. I think the parents are more, the generation I grew up, it was more do whatever you want to do, whatever makes you happy. If you want to, nobody's paying for it. Yeah. So, it's not expensive. If you want to go play hurling, go ahead. If you want to play Gaelic football, go ahead, or soccer. Absolutely. So your parents are very not standoffish, but they're in the background, but saying if you want to do it, go ahead. But you better put everything into it if you're gonna play. That's a little bit different over here because there's a bit of money involved.
There's money. There's
traveling.
It's so. I feel like people forget just how gigantic the U.S. is, just in terms of just sheer size. And so, like when you're traveling to a game that's 4 hours away, it's a factor. Yeah,
and I think also, I think the more successful you are, the more traveling you're going to be doing because, if you win State Cup, you're going to the State Cup Championships in Colorado. That's an expense. Now, if you win your regional, you're going to the regional championships down in North Carolina, and then you have tournaments either in Jefferson Cup in Virginia, Then you got a tournament in Disney. So there's an awful lot of travel involved. Where in Ireland, no, you're not traveling too far. It's everything's drivable, And I think unless your club goes to an international tournament, maybe in England or in Spain, so there's a couple of little tours like that's happening nowadays, but not so much as here. It's a vast country, so
yeah,
it's a big commitment to families.
You ended up playing professionally in Ireland for St. Patrick's Athletic Football Club. Everyone asks the question, what does it take to make it to the top level of soccer? But I'll ask a similar question. What is the common denominator that you saw every professional footballer that you played with and against? I mean, what is that quality that everyone had at that level?
I think it was a lot of it was speed of play, and the first touch is huge. I think once you start going up, there's all different. You go up the levels, but there's different levels within those levels too. I was training with the in Ireland that the pro league is not exactly pro, because all the best players usually gone to England by then, 14, 15 years of age. But it is a professional structure. Players still get paid, but it's looked at as sort of amateur. But it's still very, very good level. Players are still going over from the League of Ireland to England. But if you look at the levels, you're looking at the consistency that they show up to the training, the work ethic, and the consistency of the passing, consistency of the first touch, the movement off the ball, and the physicality of it all. So on the speed of play is huge. So there's different levels to every different league that you go into. If you go League of Ireland, they went over and played a team in England, they'd probably get, they'd do okay, because they're professionals, but there's different levels to every different, league in every country.
Was there the common denominator that you noticed that everyone had for just a mental aspect of the game?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of dedication to it. And they had to be mentally strong as well. Because as everybody's fighting for a position, there's probably 18-man squad, and then you have players that are young coming through trying to get into that squad. So you have to be mentally strong in order to. The longevity of some of these players, they're in the league for 10, 15 years, but they're fighting back younger, faster, fitter kids, so they have to pick up the level. So the mentality is a lot different as well as you go up the levels. It's the same with college over here.
Oh yeah, it's one of those things, especially when you're a freshman going into university at whatever level you play at, and you realize that you're not the best anymore, and you need to meet these guys that have been there for 3-4 years. Yeah,
and that's what I'm trying to tell our players going to college, what the expectations are. So they're not going in there and they're totally blown away by the expectations. And then, some of them are going, I'm going to be a freshman, I'm going to get playing time. I says, well, it's all up to you and your mentality. Yeah. What do you want out of it? If you want to start, or if you want to get playing time, you've got to go in with the attitude that you're going to get that time. You got to do the work before you go there. You're going to get your workout schedule, but make sure you're doing it, and maybe do a little bit more. So it all comes from within. What are your goals and what is your desire, and where do you want to start as a freshman? If not, you're not going to put the work in. If you are, put the work in, and you go there and impress the coaches.
You came to the U.S. in 1993, and you decided to continue your education and playing career at Mercyhurst Community College. Yeah. What went into that decision?
Yeah, when I first came over, I was supposed to go to a bigger school, and I didn't do well in high school. I didn't do biology in high school, so you needed a science to go play Division 1. So that option was off the table back when I came over. So the school decided, the Division 1 school decided to send me to Mercyhurst, who were a junior college. They'd won a couple of national championships at that level. So one of my best friends was there. So it was an easy transition for me from coming to a different country. And the expectations as a 20-year-old, it was a little bit, you didn't know what to expect. So you're moving away from your family. So having someone there that's familiar from my own neighbourhood, it's sort of an easy transition. It was good that I went there because I got used to, because I was out of high school for 3 years. I graduated early at 17, so I was playing pro, semi-pro, and then I was on the School of Excellence. Then I came over to the States. So I think the junior college helped me in regards to getting back into the academic. If I had went to a Division 1 school, I probably would have failed out pretty quickly because I wasn't used to the structure of the education system in the States. But the soccer was good, and it was good coaching as well. I thought it was, we went to two Final Fours, probably should have won national championship both times, but we fell short some good players that went on to play in Division 1. One or two went to Division 1, and then the rest are all Division 2.
After 2 years there, you ended up transferring to Mercyhurst College, where you ended up playing in 2 Elite 8 appearances and a trip to the Final Four in the NCAA tournament. I mean, talk me about your decision to transfer after your 2 years at community college.
Yeah, I think, obviously community college is only a 2-year school. So,
yeah.
You get 4 years to play. So one of the alumni at Mercyhurst was an assistant coach at Mercyhurst, and they were looking for a goalkeeper. So the head coach there at the time, his name is Richard Hartis. He's now the goalkeeper coach at Manchester United for the last 4 or 5 years. I think he's there about 15 years in total.
He's been doing a pretty good job, I think.
Yeah, he's done all right for himself. But he, so he was looking for a goalkeeper. He was a goalkeeper coach at Sheffield United before that. So he got in touch, and I took a chance and went there, and it worked out. I think they added a few more players that season that were a couple of young players and a couple of international players, and then we done okay. Going to a Final Four, and then my senior year we went to an Elite 8, fell short again. Always the bridesmaid.
Yeah, I can always. It's 2 years in a row. When I was in college, we fell inches short of just the NCAA tournament alone, and so I can't even relate to being that close, for a national title, let alone. I mean, we were just that close to an NCAA tournament, so that. Yeah, and it keeps you up for a few years.
I think it's all in the analogy over in this country is all down to inches. Especially with football. It's the same with soccer.
Yeah,
you have to be to peak at the right time at the right day. On the right day, and just everything to work in your favor. Some of it is luck, but you have to work hard to get your own luck. And I think we had at Mercyhurst we had a good group. We just fell short. Yeah. I think we were just lacking a little bit of quality in maybe coming off the bench, and so just things didn't we come up against a better opponent on the day, and that's life. That's not fair.
That's soccer too.
Yeah.
Before we get to your playing time at Mercyhurst, I think it's important to note that yours specifically is a great example of a path to an NCAA collegiate experience where you have success as a player. It's not as common as people think it is to go straight from high school to an NCAA school. Some go the junior route, some go to an NAIA school before they make that jump. And let me also be clear for whoever's listening, playing JUCO or at an NAIA school is something that is to be equally proud of. Just because, everyone develops differently, right, Coach?
Yeah, and I think it's the same, even at the club level. Everybody's, we're trying to I work with all the high school boys, and everybody's developing at different rates. We've got a 15-year-old who could be developing very fast physically, and then we've got a guy that's smaller. He's good, but the following year he's a totally different player because he grew up to himself. So everybody's grown different physically and then mentally too. So and the maturity part of it is huge too. So some people are probably not ready to go into college straight away into maybe a D1 program or a top Division 2 program, just can't handle it mentally. Or obviously in the NESCAC in this region, it's high stakes, it's pretty good soccer, Tufts, Bowdoin, all these schools. So some guys are just not mentally prepared for that. So sometimes you might have to take a step back and drop down a level, get your grades in order, and then keep playing, get fit as you can, and then get ready mentally to get up to the next level. So I think a lot of it is a lot of it's changed now. A lot of kids are trying to go to NAIA first and then transfer out. Junior college has dropped off a small bit, but not as much in certain areas. It's different, but I think mentally, kids have to go watch all three in this area. They have to go watch all three divisions play, so the kid can figure out with the parents saying, "Okay, I can't play Division 1, so you can go watch BU. That's a different conference. Go watch BC, ACC, one of the top countries in conferences in the country. Go watch that, and then you go, okay, ACC is off the list. I'm not going to go to Boston College." So it narrows down your search. BU, you'd be like, maybe I could compete at that level. I don't know.
It's the Patriot League.
Yeah. Then obviously you can go to Division 2. Then you go watch Bentley play. And then you go to all the Division 3s. You go Division 2. You go watch Franklin Pierce play. Then Division 1, you go watch UNH. There's only an hour away, so they're in a totally different league.
Can't forget about UMass
Lowell, yeah. And then there's the more Division 1 schools now they're opening up, like Stonehill went to Division 1, Merrimack at Division 1. But then you've got really good schools at Division 2. You've got SNU, you've got Franklin Pierce, so that's another level to look at. And then Division 3, I think there's only so many scholarships available, and people get sidetracked with the scholarship thing. There's only 9.9 scholarships per team, and you have to chop them up and spread them out amongst the players, especially at the Division 1 level. Then Division 2 is a little bit different, but there's none at Division 3. So I think the Division 3 level, is getting much better. I think there's a lot of players in this region that are Division 3 players, and I think that the coaches are working hard to try and make the product much better, and so are the schools. So I think going Division 3 has a lot of benefits because it's going to give you the education and the soccer, so it's a happy medium rather than going to a Division 1 and it's all soccer. It's like a part-time job for some schools. Sometimes you're in 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. It's a part-time job. Some people can't handle that because their grades fall apart. So it's about finding a happy medium too.
What do you say to those kids that you train or that you coach that feel like they are failing because they aren't getting a Division 1 offer? They're only getting Division 2 or Division 3 offers. Or what do you? Because you can, for a kid that has aspirations to play at the highest level, they might feel like they won't have a chance to continue their soccer career if they only are getting emails or calls from Division 3 schools, which just isn't true.
Yeah, well, sometimes I think for me the honesty is the best policy. I'm usually straight up and saying, if you think you're Division 1, what level Division 1 do you think you're going to be able to play at? Is it UMass Lowell? Is it BC? Is it this? So you start looking at, and then you say, have you been to those games? Have you been to a camp? Have you trained with some of those players to see what they're like, what their mentality is like, how fast they are, how strong they are? So and then you try to tell the players, you got to be honest with yourself too. I think that's the hardest part, is trying to be honest with yourself and say, all right, I'm not at that level. It's just, if you're honest with yourself, you'll be successful. You set yourself up to be successful too, and then you get down to a couple of levels like Division 2, some really, really good players in there too, so it's not a bad level. You're still going to get your education. Then you go Division 3, some good players in there as well, especially in the NESCAC.
And Division 3 has a lot of guys that transferred from Division 1 schools.
Yeah,
too.
And some of them had offers. Like if you go to look at the likes of Tufts, some of those kids had offers for Division 1, but they wanted to stay Division 3 because they wanted the education. They want to get on top of their education, and also it's good soccer. Mm-hmm. So they had a happy meeting between the two.
Was there a specific moment for you, either while you were playing or shortly after, that you knew you wanted to get into coaching? I
think I've always been coaching. Like when I was in our club, growing up in the soccer club I played in Ireland, it was encouraged when you were 17, 18 years of age, you were seen as a senior player, not a senior player, but an older player. You would drop down and help with the U10s, U9s, or U11s. So you were given a team, but you were an assistant coach. Mm-hmm. So you're coaching from 16, 17, 18 years of age. Obviously you don't have all your licenses, and but you're only passing on stuff that you've learned through your own training and through your own experiences to these younger kids. So my club had some really good players in there, and that went on to be top professionals. I was 18. I moved down to a U11 team, and Robbie Keane was on that team.
Wow.
So you coached him for a season. I had nothing to do with his development.
You could take credit if you want to.
Yeah, you coach Robbie Keane. Then he'd tell you himself, and maybe he has. He's on that team. There was probably 5 players better than he was, but just never made it. They weren't seen at the right time by the right person. And then some went over to England to play, but they couldn't handle it mentally, being away from their family or friends or whatever the case. Or couldn't just handle the dog-eat-dog environment of the professional leagues, so they ended up back in Ireland or in the lower leagues, so coaching, I think, probably started when I was 16, 17 years of age, because I had good coaches growing up, so they passed on, a lot of stuff that a lot of passion for the game.
Over the last 20 plus years that you've been coaching, what has changed about or what have you noticed has changed about the way that people coach over the years? What's become more effective versus what's become less effective in different coaching styles that you've noticed?
I think obviously the game evolves all the time. Everybody's watching the game a lot more access to the game. So a lot of people have a lot more interest in getting the licenses as well, and they're watching the game. They're watching practices on YouTube, so they're trying to implement that into the practice. So I think everybody, I think the old school part now, screaming and shouting on the field, I think that's sort of disappeared a little bit. And I probably, people are more figuring out during the week that they do their hard work during the week and training, setting up your practices, having your practice plan. Like, it's basically like a school teacher. You have your practice plan, what you want to accomplish in the practice. So a lot of coaches are doing that nowadays, rather than just showing up with a bag of balls and cones and then making up the practice as you go along. Those days are over. I think, once you have...
Would you say that's for the better?
Oh yeah, much better. I think you come up and you have a plan on a structure, and the kids want, you have to give them structures, but sometimes that's a detriment as well. The kids nowadays, everything is structured, and sometimes they're not learning. Sometimes it needs to be unstructured for them to, when playing street soccer or whatever the case may be, but I think the coaching has changed. A lot of people are more organized. They're setting up the progression of the practices, what they want to accomplish, and how they're going to accomplish it. I think it's a lot of communication with the players too. For me, I tell them exactly what I'm going to be doing throughout the practice. This is what we're going to do to start. This is the middle part, and we'll finish with playing. So there is a lot of communication. There is a lot more organisation and a lot more structure into the practices nowadays, which is good. I think everything is heading in the right direction.
What do you think should be continuing to be put, or let me rephrase, what do you think, in your opinion, there should continue to be more emphasis put on in coaching?
I think it's more technical work. Everything has to be technique. First touch is huge. It helps with everything. Speed of play. I think a lot of, at Valeo, that's a word known as a developmental club, because we develop players. We put a lot of emphasis into the technical part of the game, where some clubs are putting more emphasis into the winning part. And I think if you do your developmental stuff at the start, the winning will come eventually. And I think you developing better players that are set up to go on to college. I think it's huge, and I think we just got to keep plugging away with it. And a lot of people nowadays are seeing, they're seeing the wins and the wins column. That's all they want, but I think the developmental part is huge. You take example, I have a couple of teams in the high school level. Now, they didn't do well regardless of wins and losses, but if you look at where they were in November, they weren't very good. But now, come the middle of June, a pretty decent side. And then we just need to add a little bit more quality to that group. But again, it's the development. We're focusing on the players rather than focusing on the wins.
You've coached just about every collegiate level, including working in a Power 5 conference and an Ivy League conference. But not only that, working at schools like Harvard and Boston College, you've also worked with the goalkeepers there. Yeah. As a college coach, what did you look for when you were just recruiting goalkeepers, when you were looking at them as high schoolers?
I think the more you're looking for, I think how do you organise the back four? Are they a good communicator? Do they command everything? You need a presence back there. And that's what we're trying to talk to the goalkeepers at the high school level. Says you need to communicate. You need to be organising. You need to be engaged in the game. That's what a college coach is going to go, well, I don't have that in my program. So they're going to be, as soon as you hear you talking and organising, they're going to be watching you. So it's, but you have to be given good communication. You just can't be reading it off a script, just making noise. But again, you've got to, organise your back four, organise your midfield, make sure everybody's doing the job. I think it's being commanding, and then all the other stuff comes into play, are you good with your feet? That's changed. The position has changed over the years.
Drastically.
Yeah. Are you good with your feet? And then obviously can you stop a ball? Are you doing your job? Technically sound with your feet, technically sound with your hands. You command on the box. Are you good on crosses? There's a lot of different aspects into the goalkeeping aspect part of it. There's a lot of different things you can look for. Nowadays you're looking at kids that are above 6 foot. When I was growing up, there wasn't many above 6 foot. But that's a lot quicker, more agile, good with the feet. Now it's the big kids nowadays. So I think a lot of college coaches are looking for the size too. So more commanding presence in the box. And
the communication part I want to harp on for a sec, because I feel like a lot of young goalkeepers will watch games in the Premier League or La Liga or whatever it may be, and they'll see these goalkeepers that are great with their feet, they're great shot stoppers, they're great in the air, but they won't hear that communication aspect of it just because the crowd is so loud. And I think that was one of the interesting things about when games started to pick back up mid-COVID was there were no fans, and you could actually hear not only the communication on the field, but you could hear just how much those goalkeepers were talking for 90 plus minutes. And
I think they're usually the loudest as well. They're organizing, not only they're organizing the back four, they're organizing the midfield too. Yeah. And they're constantly involved in the game. Guys that I played with, I've always said, they used to go home and they had a headache because they were shouting and organizing, and they're totally focused on the game. And I think that's a huge part of it, is being focused, and the communication is it's all about prevention too. You don't have to make half of the saves that you make if you're organised. If you're organising your back four and telling players where to be, you're avoiding a lot of issues, and you don't have to make half the saves that you're out there. It's just like you got to be organised. Yeah,
sometimes your best saves are the ones that you don't have to make.
Yeah.
Goalkeeper coaching specifically, and speaking from my own experience as a former college keeper myself, it takes on a wide variety of different styles. I mean, you never really know what you're going to get walking into a new goalkeeper coach. In your professional opinion, I mean, what should youth goalkeeper coaches focus on the most when you're coaching the fundamentals?
I think obviously the footwork part of it is huge for me. I think if you can get your feet behind the ball, you don't have to coach all these saves going to the top corner, and they're very, very rarely made. If you look at maybe once or twice a season, you're extending yourself going to the top corner. So to practice that type of stuff, it's okay. But if you can do the fundamentals where you're moving your feet, quick feet, moving around the box, to learn how to catch a ball without dropping it, that's huge. Yeah. I think at the club, we're trying to harp on a little bit more is footwork and handling. It's just getting behind the ball, moving your feet so you can get behind the ball, and it's just quick feet. And I think that for me, that's huge.
Yeah.
Actually the agility around the goal, and then obviously as they get older, you can start to being a little bit more expansive. Obviously you're dealing with stronger players. Obviously you had to teach them the technique and how to dive, how to catch the ball. Different speeds, different angles. So there's a lot of different aspects to the goalkeeping. But to me, the fundamentals are, it's your footwork and your handling is huge, especially 6, 7, 8 years of age. If you can get that down, and then you start working on core strength and all that type of stuff as they get a little bit older.
Along with that, I mean, what's a coaching method that you've seen with youth goalkeeper coaching that's either outdated or isn't effective as coaches really think it is anymore?
I don't know. Some say old school stuff is great too.
Absolutely. I mean, there's always there's so many things about the old school keepers that you love to watch, and it's still relevant as a goalkeeper today, just in terms of shot stopping. But like as you mentioned, and I remember very, very vividly as a high school goalkeeper, that moment where Manuel Neuer kind of changed the game with working with your feet and being able to play out of the back. I remember that massive shift all of a sudden where my coaches were like, "You need to be better with your feet," and I was like, "What? Like with the ball at my feet?" They're like, "Yeah, you need to be able to pass the ball to your wingbacks."
Yeah. No, we do that stuff. I do work with the MLS next goalkeepers too, and I think we add in a lot of we do repetitions where obviously they move them side to side to catch the ball. Sometimes we'll say, "Okay, now I'll pass it to your feet." You pass it back out, and now you're going to catch the ball. So we try to add in the new stuff because they're going to have to be comfortable with their feet. But I think being comfortable with your feet has been around probably for the last 25, 30 years. Fabian Barthez is probably the one that started. Not probably was the start of it, but he was one of the best with it. And then obviously it's changed because people want to build out of the back now. I feel
like a Jorge Campos comes to mind too.
Yeah, and then but the thing now, you look at the coaches now are expecting, like if you look at Pep Guardiola and Klopp, they're huge. They want the goalkeepers to be able to an extra player. They're not just a goalkeeper anymore. They're an extension of the team. And there's 11 players. Edison can hit a 70, 80 yard ball, no
it's
problem.
Incredible.
So and they're pushing that too, and that means everybody wants a copy off that style. So obviously the position has evolved, so you have to know an awful lot.
You look at a player like Aaron Ramsdale, who's pushed out one of the better shot stoppers in the game of Bernd Leno, who just wasn't as good with his feet.
Yeah, and that's the same. If you look at Joe Hart, the English international goalkeeper, the first person when Pep Guardiola went to Man City, he was the first person that he got rid of. Because he wasn't as good. Well, he didn't think he was as good as his feet, but he's good at his feet. But Edison's much better.
Yeah,
so it's just the way it is. It's a cutthroat business at the top level, but the involvement of the position. There's a lot of good old school coaches out there that do. I like a lot. I try to mix in a lot of the stuff that I forget. A lot of the stuff that I used to do when I was a goalkeeper to make it for core strength. I think a lot of that is missing out of the game now as well with our goalkeepers. Is a lot of the core strength, upper body strength. I think we're sort of getting away from that. A lot of it's to do with catching the ball or a lot of agility stuff. But again, you have to go back to the core stuff. Upper body strength, obviously leg strength too, but I think a healthy mix, of the physical part, then the agility part, and then the mental part is huge too, and how goalkeepers are actually talking to themselves where the ball is at the other end of the field or after they make a mistake.
Yeah.
And that's one thing we're trying to talk to the younger guys about. How do you talk to yourself after you make a mistake? What's the most important thing? So I try to harp on the next save is the most important thing.
Oh yeah.
So if you forget about it, you have to have a short memory and just move on.
That's a mentality that I've worked into the goalkeepers that I coach one-on-one from time to time. It's like, listen, you kind of have to have a short memory with everything, even when you're having the best game of your life. You need to forget that you need to obviously remember the things that you did well, but it's not always going to be that way, and you need to remember that the next game is the next game, and you're starting with a blank slate. Yeah,
and I remember when I was younger, when I was at the pro club, when the pro goalkeeper goes, "What's your main objective as a goalkeeper?" And I said, "Well, not to make any mistakes." And he goes, "No, you're wrong." He says, "It's not. You can make mistakes, but that's fine, but don't let in a goal. That should be the main."
If you focus on if your only focus is on not making mistakes, you're going to make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, and he changed my mentality. Was okay. You got to focus on just on what you can focus on. It's the ball and what's going on. Organising your midfield, organising your back four. It keeps you engaged. And it was interesting that he said that to me because you lose focus. I don't want to make mistakes. It's all about ego.
Yeah.
Who's seen me make a mistake? Who cares if you made a mistake? You move on. It happens. So.
And the thing is, I've talked to a lot of different professional goalkeepers at all different kinds of levels, and one of the big things that they differentiate between the good goalkeepers and the great goalkeepers is their decision making. Yeah. And it's whether you're not hesitating. If you make a decision, you're going to commit to it, whether or not it's the right one.
Yeah, and just sometimes when you hesitate, that's it. You're done.
Yeah, you're in no man's land.
Yeah, and that's what we're trying to again harp on some of the goalkeepers throughout the club. Even with the high school guys, make your decision, and stick with it. Be decisive, and it's done.
And back up the decision that you made and own it if it doesn't pan out. Yeah. You made that decision, and that was the decision you went with, and you got to move forward.
And again, if you look at soccer in general, you're going to be making, even in a practice, you're probably making more decisions in one practice than you would in the whole week of your life. So you're going to make a bad decision every now and again. So that's why I talk to our guys. Some of the practices that I do, so some of the drills that we do is all about decision making, small-sided games, or even just a small drill. So you're going to make more decisions today in this practice in the next 10, 15 minutes than you have all week. Yeah. So we're just trying to overload you with decision making, quick decisions. You're going to make mistakes, but it's all
practice is the place to make them.
Yeah, and it is what it is. It's just they're doing fine. I think we're trying to work through it where some guys are making a lot of bad decisions, but I'm like, strip it back a little bit. Why are you making that decision? What did you see? And basically that's what you have to I taught them about what did you actually see in that instance. And you have to get them to think about it before, because they're going to constantly make the same decision wrong, and they're going to make it wrong every time. You've got to peel it back and say, why are you making this decision? What you're actually seeing. So then you can help them.
Everyone's heard me say it on the podcast multiple times, but I firmly believe that when kids get to high school soccer, that's one of the most pivotal points in youth soccer when you're developing. As the director of the boys' high school teams here at Valeo, would you agree? And how do you manage that development at such a crucial juncture?
Yeah, I think, if you look at last ticket, we've got the 2007 group, the development, they're starting to develop physically. and a lot of people are in different. Again, as we started at the start, a lot of people are in different stages of the development physically as well. So what I try to do in my practices, when I do have like this year, we're going to have the 2008 group that are going to be 8th graders. So what I try to do in my practice in the first half an hour is try to add in.
We're getting older.
Yeah. So we're trying to add in more. First half an hour is a lot of physical work.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're going to need to, expose them to that part of it, not too much. Because that's when they get into high school, a lot of emphasis is on a lot of physical running part of it. You give them a small look at that for the first half an hour, and then it's technical work, and then it's just playing. And then they develop, we hope, in that season, and then the high school kids come back. And then they go, okay, I've got to pick up my game again, because the high school kids come back. I've had a year in high school soccer playing against kids that are 3 or 4 years younger than them, and they've had to develop their game more physically, and they're coming back stronger and fitter. Then our kids, again, have to step up another level to try and get to where the high school kids... The 2007 group that I just experienced this year, I've done a very good job on that. Some of them have developed physically. Some haven't, but that might happen as soon as they go into high school next year, or if they work hard this summer. And, I think, the 08's probably going to be similar this year to some kids that are physically able to handle it, 8th graders, than to some that won't be. But we've got to try and get them all at the same level. But I think the high school, that age group, U14, U15, U14 is probably is crucial in the physical part of it and the technical part. So that's why I'm trying to get a happy medium between the two. So open their eyes up to, this is what's expected, because it's a little bit of a different game, and then the technical part of it, it's balls coming in quicker, so your first touch has to be better. So we're trying to get a happy medium between the two. Yeah. So I think it's a crucial year for both parts, the physical and there's a lot of different parts on the mentality part as well.
There's a lot happening in your life especially at that moment too.
Yeah. You some of your buddies may have gone off to high school, and you're sort of left behind a little bit. There's a lot of different things going on in the 13, 14-year-old boy's mind, So I think, again, it comes down. A lot of it is to do with ego, how they see themselves as well, and how they talk to themselves if they make a mistake, or if they're not making, how they you got to be a little bit more positive in how they speak to themselves. I was at Glasgow Celtic, and I heard the coach talking to the kids. So if you make it, you're too hard on yourself. You got to forgive yourself every now and again. People make mistakes, so it's part of life. So as long as you're learning from them, but you got to forgive yourself and move on. And I think a lot of kids are very, very hard on themselves as well. Parents think, some parents are not hard on the kids, but the kids are even harder if they're not performing. So sometimes you got to take a step as a coach and as a parent. You're like, all right, let's take a step back here and talk about how he's actually talking to himself, or see how he deals with certain situations.
All that being said, just talk to me a little bit how you landed here at Valeo.
Yeah, I was after BC, I left BC, and then I was looking for, hopefully a college job. Then COVID hit, and then I was talking to a friend of mine who's friends with Emilio and Carlton, and he said they're looking for a high school boys director, and I was like, yeah, I'll do that. So I wanted to get back into coaching, and this is during COVID too, So I was like, I've been out of the game probably for 18 months, and I was itching to get back in. I didn't think it was going to happen due to COVID, so I thought it was going to take a while, So, but the good opportunity came, and I think I'm here nearly 2 years now, and I'm enjoying every minute of it. I know it's a good environment, good people to work with. They have a vision on what they want to do, and it's similar to what I want to do. So I think it's it's in a good place. I think we just need to push on and get obviously recruit better players, and develop the players that we have, which obviously the club is known as a developmental club. So we're developing the players we have. Then we want to bring in players that are better than what we have, but develop them also. So it brings the whole group forward. So I'm trying to do that with every team at the high school, at my level, with every high school team that I have, and then obviously bring in good coaches. So, but I'm really enjoying it. And that's, I think it goes, in step of what my thoughts are about the game and how we develop players.
And you kind of leaned into my next question, which is, for me at this point, it almost goes without saying, but Valeo is an incredibly unique club. I mean, I've asked this of every guest so far, but what in your eyes makes Valeo unique?
I think it's the concentration on development. No, everything is, again, we're in a society where, everything is about winning and losing. And I think if you strip it all back and go to the development, the winning will come. You just got to trust the process. And I think, that's what's coming from the people that run the club. It says, okay, we know what we are. We're development. We want to develop because we're going to put the hours into the players, but the players have to put the hours in too. And I think, that's the place that that's what makes it a special place and a special club, and a unique club that we're actually, we know what we want.
Yeah.
We're constantly moving forward and trying to improve on everything, bring in better coaches. Coaches going to get their licenses, to learn different stuff and training techniques, so we can pass it on to the kids, rather than just going through the motions. We're actually actively going to get higher licenses so that we can actually put on a better practice, or have coaches come watch a practice where they're actually they can learn from another coach that went and done an A license or a B license. So I think, and then they can pass it on to kids, and that's all it's about. Is about development and the players. And that gets lost a lot in a lot of the bigger clubs.
I think I've also asked this of both Coach John Hablitz and Coach Tixera here. But what's a lesson or philosophy that you picked up as a player that you've now implemented into your coaching?
I think it's just hard work. I think you got that's all it is. It's hard work and concentration, focus. I think, if you're not going to work hard, if you're just going to go through the motions, that's the result you're going to get at the end of the week when you go, you have to do all the hard work during the week in order to get better and focus. And then comes Saturday and Sunday, it's not a light switch. You can't just switch on Sunday and expect to get results if you weren't focused during the week or you didn't put the hard work in during the week. Because 99% of the time you're not going to be focused in the game and you're not going to put the hard work in. Where if a kid on the other team has put the hard work in and is focused,
that's the difference.
You're going to get beaten. It's that simple. So for me, growing up in Ireland, everything was all about hard work. Everybody wanted to be a professional, so everybody worked hard. So it's like a way out of your situation that you're in your neighbourhood. It's just like probably inner city over here with football or basketball. Everybody wanted to be a professional, so everybody was pushing each other. Everybody was working hard. And if you look at somebody else that's working harder than you, you want to go, okay, he's working harder than me, so I'll step up in the next practice. And that gets ingrained in you over the years. And that's what I'm trying to pass on to the players that I coach, even the players that don't coach. Sometimes I drop down to a practice and I'm saying, you're just not working hard enough. Whether you like it or not, I'm going to tell you. And I'll be honest with you and I'll tell you straight out, you need to work a little bit harder. And it's not being personal, it's just
the truth.
Yeah, and I'll see potential and I'm like, potential's not working hard. You're not going to get any better and you're not going to reach your potential if you don't put the hard work in. Same with talent. If it's not working hard, it's no use to you.
Absolutely.
So you talk to them as honest as possible without being rude. You pull them aside, or even in the practice, you get the whole group together. You can frame it to the group, and then you can pull the individual players aside and say, look, this is the hard work is just not there. Like this week, you haven't been good in practice. You can't expect it every single practice. You're human. You're not a machine. So sometimes you have a day off, whether problems at home, problems with at school. You don't know what's going on in a young kid's mind. So you have to be a little bit take a step back and say, okay, what is there going on outside? And if they don't want to tell you, that's fine. If they do, good. But then you go, okay, let's use this hour and a half as a distraction from what's going on. So put everything into it, and you'll start to see results. And I think for the most part, a lot of the kids here in the club, they are work. They do work hard. Some of them are just not getting the results right now, but again, that's part of that's life. It's not fair.
I think that's a perfect place to wrap this up. I want to thank you a lot for taking the time to sit with me, Darren.
Sure, no problem.
Guys, thank you so much to those who have been listening. Thank you to those who have watched along. This has been the Valeo Values podcast. Thank you very much again to Coach Darren Murray for coming on. I have been your host, Carter Hockman. We'll see you next time.